Hello everybody, I'm Maria and welcome back to my nook. Today I'm going to be starting another reading vlog, and without further ado, let's talk about my reading plans for this vlog, because I have more than one book, which is something special for my reading vlogs. And first of all, I would like to talk about the book that I have already started yesterday, and that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this last name, but I tried. Anyway, this is the monthly buddy read of Cassandra Lynn's Patreon book club, and I'm actually really interested to see what this book is going to be like. I believe it is contemporary fiction, so it's not romance, it's not fantasy, it's not a thriller, it's just fiction. I don't want to say it's just fiction because nothing is just fiction, but like it doesn't fall into any of the categories that I normally read. Contemporary fiction is something I don't usually pick up. So this will definitely be something different for me, and I'm very interested in it. I've also heard a lot of good things about it actually, and the synopsis on the back of the book and on Goodreads intrigued me. So I am definitely curious to see what this book is going to be like. I have already read the first 2 chapters. I'm on page 30. And so far we have met the 2 main characters, Sam and Sadie. And I do believe that this book is going to be including dual timelines at least, or like multiple timelines. I'm not quite sure yet because I've only read 2 chapters, but those 2 chapters took place in different places in time. I don't know if chapter 1 took place in the present or if that was the past 2, but chapter 2 was definitely further in the past than chapter 1, in case chapter 1 also took place in the past. I don't know, because like I don't quite know what the concept, the format of this book is going to be like, whether we're going to be jumping between present and then different times in the past, or whether it's all going to be different times in the past. I don't know. We'll see. I will see. But so far, Sam and Sadie definitely intrigue me as characters. I feel like I can relate to them as characters on some levels, and I'm definitely curious to find out more about them. I also am intrigued about the situation through which they met, because Sadie spent some time in the hospital because her sister was sick, and Sam was also in the hospital because he was sick. And so Sam and Sadie met in this like gaming area of the hospital, which was made for kids, I think. And Sam started talking to Sadie, or like they struck up a conversation, and the people working in the hospital were incredibly surprised because Sam hadn't said more than like 2 words ever since he came into the hospital. And now Sadie just striking up a conversation with him just like that. They were mind blown basically. So they asked her to come more often to maybe become friends with Sam, because it would probably help him in his current situation, being sick and everything. And they did strike up a friendship, but then it kind of broke apart again. I don't know if I can say why, or if that might be a spoiler, but I'm definitely intrigued how this is going to continue, because in chapter 1, which happened definitely after chapter 2, they met up again and they seem pretty friendly. So I'm curious to see what happened in between those two events. And I also think that the synopsis suggested that this book is going to cover decades of time of their like relationship and their lives. I don't quite know where I read that. Maybe it was on Goodreads, but I think in some synopsis of this book it said that it covers decades of time, basically. So I'm definitely really curious to see what this book is going to be like. It's also really long. It's, I think, 478 pages long, which I have not read a book that long that's not a fantasy book in forever. So we'll see what this book is going to be like. My other reading plans are the first volume of the manga series Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo, I believe is the author's name. I've borrowed the first volume via Libby from my library, and I'm really excited. I've had this on hold forever, and it came through a couple of times already, but I never borrowed it because it just, I don't know, I just wasn't in the mood at those times. But this time I thought, why don't I just borrow it? It's a manga, and I've heard a few things about it because Katie is Reading talked about this series in her reading vlogs, and I'm really curious to see what it's going to be like. I think I might like it. It's going to be the first manga I'll ever read. I've never read one before. I am wondering what the differences between a manga and a graphic novel are. I do know that like you read mangas the other way around. Like graphic novels you basically read from left to right, and mangas you read from right to left. I don't know if there's any other differences. Maybe I should Google this. Perhaps I will. But the fact remains that it's going to be my first manga I ever read. I might just read it to like mix my reading up a little when I need a bit of a break from tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, because it is a break and it might take me a few days to read that. So yeah, those are my reading plans and I will get to them now. Hello everybody, it's been 5 days since I last updated you, and that is quite a lot. The reason why I haven't updated you in the last few days is because the last couple of days haven't been too amazing for my mental health, so I've just been trying to take care of myself and take it easy and take it slow, you know, just try to relax a bit. And by that, I also took it rather slow with reading. I do have quite an update now. I just didn't really have an update the last few days. So last night I finished part 2 in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, because this book is divided into 10 parts and each of those parts is divided into chapters. I finished part 2 yesterday. I'm on page 150 now, which, by the way, that shows you how slowly I've been reading the last couple of days. I'm fine with that. As for a reading update, as I already said, I finished part 2 in this book now, and honestly I'm quite surprised to see that I've been tabbing rather a lot in this book, which I didn't expect to happen. Yeah, I'm just pretty surprised about this. It's probably because while reading I feel like I'm only tabbing like one thing every 20 pages, but in the end, over the course of 150 pages, it adds up, you know? So what's been happening so far in this book? I already told you that we have met Sam and Sadie, the two main characters in this book, and by now we found out more about their backstory, how they met, what their first experiences as friends were, and we found out how they broke up. Or maybe we already found out when I first updated you, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, we know how they broke up back then as friends. We also know now that they have not been in contact between their friendship breakup back then and the first meeting that we saw in this book. And now we've kind of seen them go on this journey of getting to know each other again in their adult lives and getting closer again, becoming friends again. And they've also started programming and designing a video game together. I knew that this book would be a lot about video games, and I'm actually quite enjoying that part because I do enjoy watching videos of like people playing video games. I'm not a huge gamer myself, which is more because I don't really have many video game consoles and I don't have a PC that would be capable of running a lot of video games and stuff like that, and sometimes I just rather spend my time reading or watching movies or stuff. But I do occasionally play video games, which I really enjoy, and I really love watching let's plays and like video game live streams and stuff. So I am really enjoying seeing the side of programming and designing a video game in this book, while also getting to see the personal aspects that develop in such a situation, like the relationships that develop in such a business, the relationships that develop during the process of developing a video game and stuff like that, you know? I am really enjoying Sam as a character. I feel like I can relate to him a lot. Like sometimes not, but other times a lot. We've also seen a lot of maybe not a lot of, but we have seen some backstory of Sadie and Sam individually, like of their childhood, how they grew up, and how they became the people that they are now. What I also really enjoy is the kind of, I don't know if it's the writing style or the format, but there's a lot of sort of layering to the storytelling, because there are sometimes, for example, interviews, and the author wrote it in the way that like something happens in the present time, like in that very moment, and then it says later on, like 20 years into the future from that point, Sadie would say in an interview this. And then there's an excerpt from an interview that Sadie gave 20 years into the future, or something like that. Or the author would give us a glimpse into the future, kind of foreshadowing like a bit. And I'm really enjoying that because it gives so much more depth and so many more layers, and it provides some more context as well. I just kind of honestly feel like this is a bit of a documentary style in a very interesting and intriguing way. I think I've said it at the beginning that I haven't really read a book like this before, because this is not my typical genre that I would pick up. So I'm really interested in the way this is written, but I also can't really compare it. Like I can't really say whether it's good or bad and whether I love it or just like it, or whether I'm enjoying it because it's new, or whether I'm enjoying it because I actually like it. I'm not quite sure yet, but I've also got more than 100 pages still left of the book, so I've still got a bit of time left to figure out how I feel about this book. I still feel like I need to get used a bit to this writing style and this genre. Probably that's it. But I am enjoying my time reading this. It's just probably a different type of enjoyment than the type of enjoyment I feel when I'm reading a fantasy book or a romance book, if that makes any sense. I will hopefully manage to read quite a bit today, and I honestly don't know when I will update you again. I think it would probably make the most sense to update you when I've finished another 2 parts, because those are quite nice corner points for updates, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'll see you in my next update. Hello everybody, it's the next day and I wanted to give you an update. I had quite a nice day so far. I ate porridge with yogurt and strawberries for breakfast, which was such a delight, and I just had really nice lunch too. I've been reading a lot yesterday and reading a lot today, which has been really relaxing, so I'm really enjoying that. And speaking of reading, I also have a reading update. Actually, I have 2 reading updates. First of all, I finished part 4 in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow today. I'm on page 252 now, and we've basically just seen the continuation of Sadie and Sam's story. They've made 2 more games since we last talked, I believe. They also set up a company and grew their company, and they moved to a different city, all that kinds of stuff. Their relationship statuses have changed and all those kinds of things. And honestly, by like page 170 or 172 or something, I wrote a note into my notes app that's sad that I already felt like I had read a full novel, like a full 300-400 page novel about these characters already, even though there were still 300 pages of the book left. And I'm still kind of wondering why that is. One thing I've also noticed is that flashbacks in this book are really nicely woven in. Like, there's no italics or stuff like that. I mean, sometimes there is for thoughts, but it's not that flashbacks are completely put in italicized text. It's more so that sometimes you barely even notice when the storytelling of the present is going over into telling a flashback it's because it's just so, it just flows over so well sometimes, and other times it just, there is a break in the text with like formatting, but it still works so well. At least to me personally, it doesn't really feel like it's taking you out of the present when the book is telling you about a flashback, or showing you a flashback, I should say. But it's just another part of the story. I don't know if this made any sense, but I feel like the flashbacks are woven into the storytelling very well. That was my point. That may be one reason why this feels like a lot, even when you've only read like 20 pages, because there are flashbacks and you see at least two characters' lives transform and change and develop, and you just see them walk through life, through so many stages of life and all that. It just feels like you're being given so much information. I don't necessarily feel like it's being info dumpy all the time, but I still feel like what I am reading weighs so much that by the time I've read like 170 pages, I felt like I had already read a full 300-page novel. I don't quite know how to explain this, but I just feel like what's being told in this story has such a weight. Obviously not all the time, because there are lighter situations and there are moments where they just have casual friend moments, like just casual friend conversations and just moments where they, I don't know, grab a coffee or something, you know, just mundane things happening. But at a lot of times what's being told or shown just feels like it has so much weight. There's also a lot of quotable stuff in here, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of food for thought. Maybe that's how I can put it. And that might be one of the reasons why it feels so heavy. Not heavy necessarily in a way that the topics are difficult to handle. Some of them are, so please do check the trigger warnings for this book too. It just makes your brain work and process, and your brain has to put a lot of effort into reading between the lines and thinking about things, and it's just not a light and easy breezy read like some other books. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I've also been wondering what keeps me reading this book, because when I read a romance book, I usually continue reading the romance book because I want to see the love interests, the main characters, get together. And in fantasy books, I want to see the protagonists accomplish their mission, or I don't know, win whatever challenge they're going through, whatever. There's sort of a goal that I want to get to and that I want to read about. But in this book, I'm just reading about these people's lives, and it's also kind of filled with life lessons. And I'm like, why am I even still reading this book? It's not that I want to DNF it, but that's exactly the thing. Why don't I? Because I'm not enjoying it in a way that it makes me feel giddy or happy when reading it like romance does, or that I'm on the edge of a seat like I am when reading fantasy or a thriller or something. But there is something that keeps me reading this book, and I am wondering what it is. Maybe I'll figure that out at some point, But for now, I have another reading update, and that is that I have started reading Spy Family Volume 1 by Tatsuya Endo. And first of all, I want to say that I have looked up what the differences between manga and graphic novels or comics are. And I found out that manga are basically sort of the equivalent of Western comics, but manga have different rules that they follow compared to traditional Western comics. So for example, I already mentioned that at the beginning, you read a manga from right to left, which is the opposite of the way that you read a comic. And then it's also that with comics, there are individual issues released, and those can be bound up into like a paperback, for example. And then they're called a graphic novel, I think. And with manga, it's that the individual issues are actually called chapters, and those are bound up into a manga in paperback form, for example. And in the Spy Family manga, those individual chapters are called missions. So in the first volume, there's mission 1, mission 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so far I have read mission 1, and I sort of knew what this series is about, but I've also kind of forgotten exactly what it's about since I've last heard it was quite a while ago. But oh my gosh, I enjoyed my time so much. You also don't just read manga from right to left regarding the book, but you also read the individual pages and the panels from right to left. So that's something I've had to sort of learn and like try not to get confused, because my eyes will obviously reflexively try to read from left to right instead, but I think I'm sort of getting used to it. And oh my gosh, I've enjoyed my time so much so far. So we have met Twilight, who is a spy, and Twilight is his code name. He's one of the best spies, and he has received this new mission in which he is supposed to keep an eye on this, I think he's a politician or something. He's definitely pretty high up in the ranks, but he's also a pretty secluded and private person. So in order to get close to him, because he needs to, in order to like keep peace between the two countries and basically the whole world. But in order to do that, Twilight needs to have a wife and a child that he can enroll in the same school of this politician's son. And so he went and found a child in an orphanage, but he doesn't know that she's a telepath. The girl is named Anya and she's really sweet, but like he just doesn't know she's a telepath, and he's also kind of bad with kids, but he's trying really hard. He went to the library to like find a lot of books on parenting and stuff, so he's trying, you know, but it's just difficult for him because he's obviously been a loner as a spy. And yeah, that's kind of what the first mission was about. It was about him finding an alias, which is Lloyd Forger, I believe, finding an apartment, finding a child, and trying to get her enrolled in that school. And now the next step will be finding a wife. And I'm really, really, really excited to see that. So I am going to grab myself another glass of water and then keep reading. It's the next day and I wanted to give you a reading update about my day yesterday. I don't really have an update on tomorrow because since my last update, I really only read the entire volume 1 of Spy Family yesterday and then like 5 more pages in tomorrow. So there's nothing really to update about that book, but I obviously have an update about Spy Family because I started and finished that manga yesterday and I enjoyed it so much. I had such a good time reading that. As I already mentioned after reading Mission 1, I really enjoyed the characters of Twilight or Lloyd, and I really enjoyed the character of Anya, the little girl, who's, by the way, I think 4 or 5 or something like that, and then Yor, who's pretending to be Twilight's fake wife for this thing, and she kind of has her own intentions with that because she also does not know about Twilight's mission. She thinks he's Lloyd Forger and she believes that Anya is his kid. And she agreed to be his fake wife for different reasons that he told her that are kind of the truth, kind of a lie. But like, as I already said, she also has her own intentions. She also kind of wanted to have a fake boyfriend at first, and then she agreed to have a fake husband because like, she's I think 27 and being single at that age is causing a lot of social problems with like co-workers and stuff. So she agreed to that whole sham theater. And I really enjoyed the situations that they got into. Some of them were pretty random. Like, for example, they went to that school that Twilight wanted to enroll Anya in, and they wanted to go through that interview process, but then like suddenly the animals of the school farm got loose and stuff. It was chaos. And there was that one character, he was headmaster of one of the, I think it's like a boarding school where you have different houses, kind of like in Harry Potter where you have Gryffindor and Hufflepuff and everything. They have these different houses at that school, and this one guy is headmaster of one of those houses, and he kind of oversees that interview process. And he wanted the families of the children that are enrolled in his school to be elegant, and he kept repeating that, and it kept getting more wild how he was saying that, because he was obviously keeping an eye on the Forger family, and he was like, they're so elegant, and he was going crazy with how elegant he thought they were being. And it kind of reminded me of this one guy. I think it's a character from the Very Odd Parents, Timmy Turner, in that it's a kids show. Timmy Turner has this one teacher who sometimes just has these, I don't know, jittery attacks where he just screams words, and it's just so wild. And it reminded me of that a bit. It was pretty funny, but also really wild. And it was just, I had such a great time. Like, there was action and some tension sometimes, and there were funny moments and wholesome moments, and I am definitely, absolutely going to continue that series. I'm so looking forward to volume 2. I think there's currently 9 volumes out in English. I'll have to check out how many volumes my library has available, but I'm definitely looking forward to continuing that series. I had a great time so far, and I don't know. It was just great. I really enjoyed it. But now I am going to continue reading tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It's been 2 days since I last updated you, I think. I had actually planned to finish part 6 in tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, yesterday, and then update you after having finished part 6. But then, at the end of part 6, something happened. Like, literally within 2 pages, the last 2 pages of part 6, the tone changed so quickly and so drastically that everything was so incredibly tense, so suddenly, which I had not expected. It was so surprising. And I was like, I need to continue reading because I just need to know what's going on and what's about to happen, or what is happening, or what's going to happen next. So I continued reading part 7, basically trying to look for a good place to pause reading so I could, first of all, go to sleep, and second of all, update you. But then that just didn't happen. Like, at every second while reading part 7, I was like, I need to continue reading because I need to know what's going to happen next and how this is going to continue, and I just could not stop. It was getting darker and darker and darker outside, and I didn't even want to put the book down for like 30 seconds in order to get up and put the lights on. It was just, everything was so tense, and part 7 was so incredibly sad and devastating and upsetting. I'm still so incredibly upset. I'm currently like 8 pages into part 8 actually, because even after finishing part 7, I still needed to know a bit further, like what's going to happen next. So I read a couple of pages into part 8. I finished page 377 yesterday, and oh my god, at that point I was like, I need to put this book down now because otherwise I'm not going to sleep 1 minute tonight. I did sleep pretty badly last night because my brain just was trying so hard to process what happened in part 7, and I'm still so upset, honestly. Like, that was so heavy, but it was also so well written on an artistic level, I would say. It wasn't well written in the way that I enjoyed the writing and what was happening, but I could objectively see that it was well written and cleverly written. The format changed a little in part 7, and it was just the fact that it got all those emotions out of me and that it had that emotional impact on me probably shows pretty well that it was well written, because I read other books where there were scenes that were supposed to be emotional, but they just did not have the emotional impact that they were supposed to have. But it surely had a great deal of emotional impact. I'm still not over it, and I don't know if I will get over this anytime soon. I'm genuinely so upset. Please check the trigger warnings before reading this book. I did, and I just did not count 2 and 2 together. So this still took me so much by surprise, and I was so shook. I honestly can't give you another piece of information about my reading experience right now, because that's all I read yesterday, and it was all just a big oof. And I'm hoping that the rest of the book will like calm down a little bit, and I'll probably not read too much of this book today. I still wanted to give you an update because there's only 3 parts left of this book, part 8, 9, and 10. Maybe my next update will be when I finish this book. But yeah, that's all I can tell you right now. And I'm going to take it easy on my brain today, and I'm going to take it easy with reading today. So, I am here to wrap up this vlog. First of all, don't mind this towel situation on my head. I just hopped out of the shower. It's been a couple of days since I finished Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I finished it, I think, 2 days after I last updated you. I'm just only now wrapping up this vlog because I wanted to allow myself to really process how I feel about this book and how I feel about the ending and what I think about this book in general, because this book is a lot. I don't quite know how to describe it, but I'll try. Like, first of all, this book was a roller coaster. We saw Sadie and Sam from when they were kids until they are in their 30s. So that's just so much. That's so much time you spent with those characters in so many different situations, and you found out so many different things about the characters that it just felt like you were getting told and shown so many things. In the last 3 parts since I last updated you, part 8, 9, and 10, we kind of saw the aftermath of what happened at the end of part 6, during part 7, and at the beginning of part 8. I obviously don't want to spoil anything, so I'm trying to be vague here, but like, we saw the aftermath and the consequences of those events and that was still pretty heavy. I don't know if I mentioned this before, I hope I did, but I'm still just gonna mention it again. Please look up the trigger warnings for this book, and I really do mean it this time. I did look up the trigger warnings before, but still, when that certain situation happened and how it happened came so unexpectedly and suddenly that it was just so jarring and upsetting for me. So I really just want everybody out there to be safe. And I just think that this book deals with a lot of heavy and sensitive topics. I did see a review on Goodreads where somebody said that this book kind of tackles too many heavy and sensitive topics to a point where it feels like the author just wanted to put every controversial topic imaginable into this book and let their stance be known. But if I'm being honest, to me it felt rather not natural and organic per se, but I kind of felt like this could have been a life somebody went through or somebody is going through. Yes, a lot of shit happened, but also a lot of good things happened in this book and to the characters, and I do feel like it could have been the life of somebody that was depicted in this novel. At some points I actually kind of felt like it was more of a documentary than a fiction novel, because the characters just felt so real and the relationships felt so organic. But I do have to say that I saw somewhere or read somewhere, I don't know, but somewhere this book was kind of advertised as a celebration of friendship, and I don't really agree with that, because the main friendship in this book is a rather toxic platonic relationship, and other relationships in this book are not always very healthy either. Some of them are more healthy than others, and some of them I felt like were probably healthy, but we didn't see that much of them, so I couldn't really judge it. But it's just, I wouldn't call this a celebration of friendship, so maybe don't go into this thinking that it is, because I think you'll be disappointed if you go into this book hoping for it to be a celebration of friendship. I still thought that the relationships were so well fleshed out and there was so much depth and layering to the characters and the relationships that I really enjoyed that. I can't quite describe what was so sort of mesmerizing about this book. Mesmerizing may be a bit too dramatic of a word, but like it was just that something kept me reading this book and I don't know what it was. I definitely thought that the writing style was pretty unique. To be fair, I don't typically reach for like contemporary fiction, literary fiction, general fiction, so I haven't read that many books that I could compare to this, but I felt like the writing style of Gabrielle Zevin was unlike anything I had ever read before, and I also don't know how to describe this. It was just so unique, and I felt like this novel was quite extraordinary. There was so much food for thought in this story and in the writing, and I really feel like this book has so much potential to stay with a reader for a long time. I don't yet know if that'll be the case for me because not that much time has passed yet, but I feel like if a book stays with a reader for a long time, that's always a rather good sign because it means that it had an impact of some sort. Hopefully a somewhat positive impact. But I mean, even if the book makes a reader reflect about negative topics, I would count that as a positive thing too. Even if it's a negative topic, reflecting a little is probably always a good thing. I also really enjoyed that this book was set in the video game industry. I was definitely interested in seeing a different point of view at video games and the video game industry because I don't really know anything about video game programming and designing and the industry behind it. So it was definitely interesting to see that part of everything. I do also think that the topic of the video game industry wasn't too extensive, which I think was a good thing, because if it had been too extensive, I think I would have probably been confused or something, but it wasn't. So I was able to follow, even though I practically know nothing about the video game industry, programming, designing, etc. So there was depth to the topic, but on such a level that I was still able to follow. And I think that was good, and that made it interesting too still. I don't think this book was a 5-star read for me, especially because there was this one part that was really jarring. After that, I was kind of hesitant to pick the book up again, but then I did because I just kind of wanted to get over that upsetting part, you know? The ending was a little bittersweet, but a little more sweet than bitter, I think. I liked the ending, I think. I also read in a review on Goodreads that somebody didn't like that ending because they don't like that type of ending, which you will probably know what I'm talking about if you have read the book, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't. But I just think that the ending was a nice one because of something an author that I really like has recently said in an interview. It was something V. Schwab said in an interview recently. She has written the Shades of Magic trilogy, and this year in September, The Fragile Threads of Power is coming out, which is her newest release. And that book is basically the first book in a sort of spin-off series, but it takes place in the same world as the Shades of Magic series. Now, The Fragile Threads of Power basically starts a couple of years after the end of the Shades of Magic series. And she said about this that she wants readers to feel through the characters or through the way she wrote the characters as if that time has actually passed and the characters have actually continued to live their lives for that time that has passed. And I found that really interesting because I often feel a little sad when there are time jumps in books or between books in a series, because I feel like I've missed so much time with the characters. And V.E. Schwab just said that she wants the readers to feel not just like they're picking up the next book and on the page it says this and that many years have passed, but the characters should feel as if they have continued their lives for that many years. And I think with that thought in mind, I liked the ending of this book. Again, it's probably not going to be a 5-star read because I didn't really feel like it was. But I think I'm still between like 4 or 4.5 stars because it was a really good book. It was really well written and had so much food for thought, and I somehow enjoyed my time reading on some level that I can't quite describe. Probably just because I don't typically reach for this genre. But I did. So just to recap a little before I let you go, in this vlog I have started and finished Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I've also started and finished the first volume of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. So I think this was an interesting constellation of books. Let's call it that. But with this I will definitely let you go now because I've talked enough about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow now, and I've talked enough in general now. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up and perhaps subscribe to my channel. Maybe let me know down in the comments if you have read either of the books that I have read in this video, and let me know your thoughts. If you haven't read these books, or if you don't want to let me know your thoughts, which is fine, you can just tell me anything you want to tell me. And otherwise, I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet or in my next video. Bye!